Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to another video here on Cluiche with me, Seamus Brady, your host, and I'm joined once again by Matthew Hurley, the Gaelic Statsman. An absolute pleasure to have you on again, Matthew. What a weekend! 2 All-Ireland football semi-finals. Glen, Kilmacud Crokes, what a cracker that was. St. Brigid's Castlehaven was a gripping contest as well. We're down to the final two now, Matthew. God, it only feels like a couple of months ago that all the county championships were still on. Now we're down to the final two. It's going to be Glen against St. Brigid's in the All-Ireland final this time.
It is, and thanks for having me on again, Seamus. Yeah, it was an incredible day of football, really. Like between the weather, games not going, people thinking they weren't going to go ahead. There was games, hurling games, certain games that didn't go ahead in pre-season competitions today. But I thought, honestly, look at even I was staying in Nina last night and traveling to Thurles in Semple Stadium, and going from Nina to Thurles today. The fog was absolutely incredible when you looked at it, like you couldn't see cars in front of you. That was how bad it was on the road. And I was thinking, is this game going to even go ahead? And even when you looked at the pitch in the Bridges Castlehaven game, like there was one pitch where it looked like summer and the other part looked like winter. It was just incredible conditions. And even look at the highlights there when I got back home from the match about Kilmacud and Watergraham's Glen. Like there seems to be green smoke ascending into Park Esler, and I don't know, was it the Watergraham's Glen fans having smoke thingies in the crowd or whatever, or was it just genuine fog? And even for, I think it was Hugh Kenny's goal, like there was a confusion. Was it Darragh Dempsey? Was it Hugh Kenny? I think Brian Tyres was even confused himself. But then at the back of the goal, it did say it was Hugh Kenny that got the goal, in fairness. But from where the camera was, you couldn't see what was happening at the other
Oh,
side
it
of
was
the
the
pitch.
commentator's worst nightmare. Like I genuinely was watching that. I was like, that must be Brian Tyres' absolute nightmare. That he can't see the numbers on people's backs. He can't see the person that's on the ball. And there was actually a couple of instances where a player genuinely emerged from nowhere to make a tackle and everything like that. And my dad was saying to me there, we were watching the game together, my dad was saying, like, God, it would be great if one of them was wearing a grey kit, wouldn't it? They'd be able to spring out of the traps on the team. You wouldn't see them coming at all. Yeah, it was just genuinely watching the game. There was periods where I genuinely thought I wouldn't be surprised if this gets called off. I remember a league game, I think it was a few years ago. I think it was Dublin Mayo, and it got abandoned kind of halfway through the game for the fog coming down onto the field. Like, did you think that was possible at any point?
I think it could have been called off, yeah. And I was actually even more surprised that, during the week, I know we talk about preseason competition, but during the week, there was a Connacht FBD league game where there was an orange ball. Why couldn't they
Yeah,
use that to, it would have been
true. Yeah.
perfect today. I actually don't know why they didn't use it, but yeah, the Castlehaven and Bridges game, the fog kind of went away, which was kind of a good thing, to be fair. But even looking at Glen and Kilmacud, I looked at the highlights of the first half and the highlights of the second half, and it seemed to get worse as the game went on. So,
Oh no,
like, yeah.
imagine extra time.
Oh
Extra
yeah.
time, I wouldn't. Like I was saying, if this goes to a draw, they have to just call it and go for a replay. They have to, because it's impossible to see now at this point. The rule is that the referee stands in the middle, and if the ref can see both goals, then you allow the play to go on. But if the ref can
Yeah.
see one of the goals, he has to call it off, because there could be all sorts going on. I seen one joke. This was in my work group chat. This at the GA Museum, someone sent in, be a great day for Crokes now, because they can throw 20 players on and nobody will notice. So, I mean,
Um,
that was a funny joke, but
no, there was a funny joke actually. I'm on a group chat as well for a podcast that I'm involved in as well, and one fella put in about the Brian Sheehy elbow. That was a red card, to be fair. We'll talk
yeah,
about that. But he was saying that that was a clear red card. But to be fair, the ref was 5 yards away in fog, so you couldn't really see it. So the amount of jokes that went on now online, it was absolutely incredible. And saying Kilmacud would sneak, I don't know, another few players on and cheat even more. Yeah, the jokes were absolutely incredible. But that's the world of social media, I suppose. It's developed as time has gone.
that's it. And like we'll start there. We have to start there. It was such a brilliant game. It was genuinely end to end, particularly in the second half. It finished Kilmacud Crokes 2-10, Glen 1-14. So Glen got the better of them. And to be honest, at halftime, when I was watching, I put up a tweet on the Enclave page at halftime. I said, this is as big. I think I'll read out the tweet that I put up. I put up a statement-y tweet, but I have it here. So the tweet that I put up, this is serious. This is as difficult a test as Kilmacud, this Kilmacud side has ever faced. If they come through this now, they'll silence any critics that they have. And like, they genuinely was watching this thinking, I switched up. I said that Kilmacud would win the All-Ireland at the start of the season, but the minute that it got announced that it was going to be in Newry against Glen, I was not confident at all that they were going to win. And that's honest truth. I just thought this game was tailor-made to suit Glen. And then at halftime as well, when Glen were 5 points up, especially when they put the burners on just coming up to halftime, and they were 9 points to 4 ahead at halftime, I was thinking, I'm so confident that Glen are going to win this game. And then the other thing as well is, when you're talking about Matthew, what Kilmacud started doing, they brought on Keane O'Connor, they brought on other lads, they brought on Dara Dempsey, they brought on Hugh Kenny, and these lads that are buzzing around, putting in tackles, putting in effort, putting in energy. And all of a sudden, Kilmacud are back into the game. Now, on the one hand, you say amazing champions, amazing warriors to fight back from the position that they're in. But then at the same time, you're saying, well, lads, where was that in the first half? Why did it take 30 minutes for that fight, for that determination to come out? You're in an All-Ireland semi-final. You should have that from the start.
I think, though, you have to give credit to Glen in that first half performance. I thought they were absolutely superb. Conor Glass was absolutely brilliant, marauding up and down the field. And when you talk about fight and things like that, there was some hefty challenges going for Kilmacud in the first half. There was clearly fight, like as we mentioned previously in the chat, Brian Sheehy's elbow. And I thought, looking at that, that was a red card. It was a clear red card. But they were putting in them sorts of challenges, which kind of suggests to me they were still up for the fight. It was just Watty Graham's Glen were up for more, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And even they were doing the street smart stuff. Like, I was on the way home, I was listening to Marty Morrissey's commentary, and while I'm on RT's commentary, it actually cut off, I think, once or twice, because there was electronic issues in Newry as well as issues on the pitch. So it was just all issues overall all day. But he said something at the end of the half to I think it was Peter Canavan that was co-commentating. What Watty Graham's Glen did at the end of the first hour, I don't know, did you notice on TV, Seamus? They stayed back when Kilmacud were going down the tunnel to avoid conflict, to avoid fighting. And I think that was brilliant. Because they knew we're well clear in this game. We're 9 points to 4 up. Don't do anything stupid. And Watty Graham's Glen didn't. They stayed back. And then in the second half, to be fair, Watty Graham's Glen started off the best in that second half. They were 11-4 up. And then ultimately, Kilmacud got back into the game because of an absolutely incredible pass from Shane Walsh. Like, the guy's quality. Yeah. Like, that ball into Hugh Henny to get the goal. The first goal for Kilmacud, I think it was just what they needed. It was just a brilliant initiative bit of play. It was absolutely brilliant in its own right. And Kilmacud did all the right things in the second half. But that moment for Ethan Doherty's goal, I don't know what they were doing. They were a point down. You'd be thinking, keep it together. We just need to go up the other end of the field and get a score. But they diddled around with it at the back. Glen intercepts them, Ethan Doherty puts in the back of the net. And ultimately, I know Shane Walsh scored that second goal, but the game was gone then, because Kilmacud didn't have time after that. But I think Kilmacud, they did show fight in the first half, but I think it was more of a case of Watty Graham's Glen showing more fight for Kilmacud. And that was always going to be the case, considering what happened last January. So I have to say, Watty Graham's Glen, they definitely went up to their name, and they definitely produced a brilliant performance in that first half. Conor Glass, people, I said to you on my podcast that Kevin McGorty from Antrim, he's on the JMAT podcast, was questioning Conor Glass in these big pressure cooker games. He definitely proved the doubters wrong today. He was brilliant all over the field. He was winning ball. He was dominating the middle of the park. Like, Craig Diaz couldn't get a paw on him. He was in that kind of a form today. So I think Watty Graham's Glen deserved their victory. And Kilmacud, look, great fight shown in the second half until that moment with the Doherty goal. But Watty Graham's Glen, they're now the favourites for the All-Ireland, and rightly so.
Yeah, and that's a tricky one when you're talking about it. But when you're coming about mindset, Like, how are they going to keep their feet on the ground going into a final against St. Brigid's, who have come out with the side with Castlehaven, and everybody's saying, oh, well, Glen are going to win the final now. Like, how many times have we seen a team come through the tougher side of the draw and then lose the final because they take their eye off the ball at the final hurdle? So Malachy O'Rourke will have them down. He'll have them ready. This is the same stage now that they fell at last year. So they're not going to take Brigid's lightly. No question about that. The first half, yeah, I agree with you. I thought they were absolutely fantastic in the first half. They just looked like they were so comfortably in control. I thought the job that Ryan Duggan was doing on Paul Mannion was fantastic. Michael Warnock on Shane Walsh really did really well in them as well. Shane Walsh had one outrageous score off his left foot, but apart from that, wasn't getting into the game as much as he usually does. Mannion, I didn't really see much from him from play, but in the second half, both of those guys, you're right, had individual moments of brilliance. Mannion kicked over 2 points that were just absolutely out of this world, particularly one off his left on the far side where he kicked it and it curled in over the bars. Outrageous. Shane Walsh's pass for the goal was absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how he even spotted that through the fog. And on top of that, like, Crokes were kicking into the worst of the fog. And I posted a photo where it's Paul Mannion lining up to take a free, and you can barely even see the post. I was just thinking, like, imagine putting yourself in that scenario. So, look, this is one of those things where Crokes, look, they're going to get a lot of hate for what happened in last year's final. A lot of people will be happy to see them go. But you can't deny their mettle. You can't deny that they are champions. The way that they went out, they did not go out with a whimper. They roared back into that contest. And there was actually a 90-second to 2-minute spell where I was convinced that they were going to find a winner, where they were hanging on to the ball for a while. I thought that they were going to work it to Shane Walsh or work it to Cian O'Connor, who usually pops up with clutch scores, or work it to Paul Mannion, and they were going to get a winner. And it wasn't to be this time. But there's no doubt this isn't the last we're going to hear of this Kilmacud Crokes team.
It isn't, no, not at all. Not at all in Leinster anyway. I don't think Leinster counties outside of Dublin will challenge Kilmacud Crokes whatsoever. But you have to question, obviously you know more about the Dublin Championship than I do, but Na Fianna going out in the group stage, they'll surely be hungry next year to challenge Kilmacud Crokes. Ballymun, I look at Ballymun's team and think, how on earth have they not won Dublin with the likes of James McCarthy, Dean Rock, small brothers?
It's difficult though with Ballymun, because I think Ballymun, as hard as it is for me to say this, I think Ballymun have tipped over a little bit past the peak. I think McCarthy's in the twilight of his career. Dean Rock is in the twilight of his career. They're not as good as maybe they were 5 years ago. They're still amazing footballers, don't get me wrong, but they haven't come near a Dublin Championship in the last 3-4 years. Apart from it, since they won it in 2020. 3 years ago, they haven't come close. They were way off in 2021. They got knocked out, I think it was by Lucan. Then they got knocked out in 2022 at the quarterfinal stage as well. And then they got knocked out this year at the quarterfinal stage by Crokes. Look, they're still a very, very good side, and they could take out anyone on a given day. But I don't think they're the threat that they once were. I think they've massive name power. Like, they still have an incredible squad. But I don't think they're on Crokes' level quite.
Yeah, it is a valid point, definitely. But even look at the match program today. Like, they did something brilliant, the GA actually today, putting them 2 matches on the same match program, and fair play to them for that. Obviously, I'm looking at the Kilmacud Crokes full back line here. Rory O'Carroll, Theo Clancy, and Dan O'Brien. That's nearly an inter-county full back line.
It is. So it literally is. All of those lads have played for Dublin. All of them.
And Dan O'Brien deserves to get more minutes on the pitch for Dublin, in my honest opinion. I watched him, I think, in a 2020 league game against Mayo, and I was thinking, who's this guy? I think it was himself and Oisin Mullen for Mayo, and I was so impressed by the both of them. Oisin Mullen, in fairness, has kicked on. He's gone to the AFL. But Dan O'Brien, I wonder how he's not got more minutes at Dublin. He's just an incredible footballer. He goes up and down the field. He's an energetic player, a ball of energy. I actually don't know how Desi Farrell doesn't pick him.
Theo Clancy's my one. Theo Clancy's my one. I think he's made for that fullback position for Dublin. I think like when you look at Mick Fitz, will probably retire. If not this year, he'll probably retire next year. Johnny Cooper's gone. Like, Rory O'Carroll's not coming back. We don't really have a fullback. Theo Clancy needs to be our fullback.
Yeah. He definitely does. He definitely does. And Andy McGowan, I'm sure he played a few minutes for Dublin as well
Yeah,
once upon a time. So he's another player at centre back. Keane O'Connor, Keane O'Connor's nearly like super sub, and whether he starts or he's on the bench, he still provides something as well. I think midfield though, I know Craig Diaz is a decent player, but what does he know? Well, I heard somewhere he's 33, 34 now.
yeah, he is.
So maybe.
He's hitting the last few years.
So, is there time to revamp the midfield a small bit? Like a heartless sleeve, and he's a brilliant player and all that. But is he up to the likes of Conor Glass and Emmett Bradley? Like, I'm looking at the two midfielders today. Conor Glass, Emmett Bradley up against Craig Diaz and Mark O'Leary. Like, that was always going to be a mismatch, in my opinion. Like, looking at them two, that's nearly one of the best midfield partnerships in the country. And
It
Kilmacud
is
probably,
club championship wise.
if Kilmacud want to get to another All-Ireland final, or they want to win another All-Ireland, they probably need to revamp the midfield. I know it's a bit harsh on Mark O'Leary, who has at stages has performed well in this championship, but they need to do something in that midfield. Like the half forward line is still good. Darren Mullen, it's strange with Darren Mullen actually. He didn't score today, and he didn't score much in the championship leading up to this game either. I don't know, did he play more of a supporting role this year? He was brilliant last year, there's no doubt about that, but he played more of a supporting role in my opinion. Now this year, the half forward line seems good enough to go in the next few years. Shane Horne's an inter-county player with Offaly. Paul Mannion is an outstanding footballer, no question about that. Hugh Kenny is a good footballer as well. Shane Cunningham is a good club player. So I think Kilmacud and David Higgins proved today that he's well able to come out the goal, scoring that brilliant point now today. So I think midfield is the major thing that Kilmacud need to change to maybe challenge Watty Graham's Glen next year or any other up-and-coming team. But other than that, I think they could be around for the next few years.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think you've actually hit on the nail on the head. Like we'll go through a couple of key stages of the game, but one key thing that I think is crucial is if you look at Kilmacud Crokes throughout the Dublin Championship, throughout last year's All-Ireland Championship, like Shane Walsh and Paul Mannion are the obvious threats. They're the obvious ones that are going to score 3-4 points a game guaranteed. But Keane O'Connor, Shane Cunningham, Hugh Kenny, Darren Mullen, these guys always strike goals at like crucial times, or they strike points at crucial times. You look last year, Keane O'Connor hit a goal that, got them past Jude's in the 2021 Dublin final, for example. He hit the crucial score against Naas in the Leinster Championship that same year. Shane Cunningham's come up with countless crucial scores. Darren Mullen has been crucial at times, and they help when, say, Shane Walsh does get double marked, or when Paul Mannion does get double marked and they can't really get those crucial scores. Someone like a Keane O'Connor pops up today, which is why I was surprised he didn't start. But you are right in saying this. Darren Mullen was very quiet today. Shane Cunningham was whipped off with 25 minutes to go, which is something that I was not expecting to see at all. He is Kilmacud Crokes' captain and was their club player of the year last year. I wasn't expecting him to be taken off, but he didn't really do anything. Hugh Kenny didn't start. His form, is it as good as it was last year? I don't know. You are right. And I think those little elements, along with the fact that Ben Shovlin, Connor Casey isn't as fit as he was last year, Killian O'Shea didn't play either. Just tiny little things like that, I think have all contributed to them falling an inch short of Watty Graham's Glen. And that's all it takes. It was an inch that Glen got by Kilmacud Crokes by. And that's the levels at this game. Kilmacud Crokes and Glen are so good. And I think everybody picked them to be the two right from the beginning of the year to lock horns again. They proved it. It was one hell of a contest, but Crokes fell short by an inch. So you have to analyse, why do they fall short by an inch? And I think that lack of a dig out to Shane Walsh and Paul Mannion from the other players who always give it was crucial today, because Walsh and Mannion were kind of left to do it a lot by themselves.
Definitely so. And even look at the bench there, number 27, Tom Fox. He was a main part of the team last year. I don't know what's wrong with his form. Is he dropped out or something like that? Even look at the fearless Luke Ward went up with it. He started today and came up with a crucial moment against Raheny in the Dublin semi-final. So he might be a new lad coming on the block there. Brian Sheehy started as well, I'm sure. Jeff Kenny, Pádraig Purcell. He's more of a hurler, I'd imagine.
She and Mark O'Leary are 22. They're my age. They're young lads in the team. They'll be around for a good few years. But they don't have anyone really apart from Diaz and Rory O'Carroll that you'd kind of be looking at thinking, okay, maybe in the next 3 or 4 years you might go.
And that's a good sign in fairness of the team. But what I will say, midfield is what wins you All Irelands or um, relevant competitions in the club game. And Watty Graham's Glen have that. Even out of the two sides today, the other semi-final, BRIGIDS and Castlehaven, even look at their midfielders. Like BRIGIDS had Eddie Nolan and Shane Conan in midfield, and
Yeah,
Castlehaven, Conor Cahalane, who's an absolute beast. So I'd say Kilmacud, they're very good when it goes around defence and attack. And they were very good at midfield in fairness last season. But there comes a time now you need to change it up a small bit. And I think Kilmacud, it's come to that time where they need to change up midfield. They're well able. Like, you look at the numbers of the Kilmacud Crokes club, it's absolutely incredible in its own right. So I think they need to focus on that next season to make a push at another All-Ireland title. I think in Dublin, I think they could dominate. Could they dominate in the next few years? Like Ballyboden, once they got to the final this year, were very, very poor. And
yeah.
Aaron was one fella that was kind of expecting more from them. And the Fina, will they provide a challenge now next year? Ballymun, could they get as good players as the likes of Dean Rock, James McCarthy? Like, you even look at, like, I'm struggling to think of other clubs past that. So, like, Kilmacud will definitely fancy their chances in winning another Dublin title and following on for that, a Leinster title. But to win an All-Ireland again, they need a good midfield. They need a strong, compact midfield to go on another run in All-Ireland's championship again. And I'm sure those players that you mentioned there, Darren Mullen, Shane Cunningham, Tom Fox, all them, will be even hungrier to perform well next season because they
Yeah.
didn't perform well enough this season. They'll want to go at it again, and I think they're well able to do that.
Yeah, well, it will test them. There's no question about that. It will test the hunger. How much do you want to come back? Because, like, people will hit them with that stick. Whether it's fair, whether it's not fair, whether it's right or wrong, people will always say, oh, 17 players on the pitch. People will always say that. So it's up to you. Do you want to come back and do you want to prove that you are champions and you want to win again in a way that gets them to shut up? Now, unpopular opinion, Crokes were the best club team last year. And they won that final fair and square. Well, not fair and square, but they were the better team on the day. And look, the incident with the 17 players at the end, the referee should have just simply gone, okay, take the 45 again. Like, you should, like, someone should have flagged it to him. Okay, bring it back out, take the 45 again. And the reality is it was allowed to cook the way that it did, and it became a massive thing, which it should have, because they shouldn't have done that. But yeah, no, it's just a big, big mess when you look back on it, wasn't it? And that contributed to the anticipation for this game. Like, it was packed in Newry, like absolutely massive interest in this game. So we'll go into the key moments now. I think one of the key moments, I think we'll talk about the first half, and then we'll talk about the carnage. We'll talk about the Crokes fight back, and then the carnage at the end. So we mentioned about the first half with Glen. You mentioned about how they seemed more up for it than Kilmacud Crokes. On top of that, they were also converting their chances. Like, Danny Tallon pretty much converted every shot that he took. The Mulhollands were springing up from the defence again, as they usually do. And that burst at the end of the half, Emmett Bradley and Conor Glass both supplying points. Like, it did look towards the end of the half like, God, Kilmacud Crokes are in big trouble here. Glen tactically got it right in the first half. Their matchups were good. They kind of forced Crokes to go along a lot of the time with the kickouts, and then they were able to get their own kickouts off rather easily. And they had individual scores really, really well. Michael Warnock was outstanding at the back. Ryan Dugan and him picked up Walsh and Mannion in the first half. They got that right. Kieran McFall was outstanding at 6. They got everything right in the first half. And the scoring flurry at the end with McFall and Glass hitting the last 2 points really put the stamp on it that they were in charge at halftime.
And even look at their backline and their midfield, it is very strong, and they utilised that very well today. Like Michael Warnock, Ryan Dugan, as you mentioned there, Conor Bradley's a leader in goal, Kieran McFall, like they've one of the best midfield, well, the best, let's be honest, midfield partnership in the club game at the moment. The two Mulhollands, like Ewan in particular, this club championship, I think he's been outstanding, running up and down the field. I think he's been, a colossal player for Watty Graham's Glen. And even look at the middle player, like Doherty didn't contribute much the first half by the looks of it on TG Carr, but he was still getting challenges in. He was still trying to get stuck in. Jack Doherty's another guy, like Danny Tallon, as you mentioned there, a load of shots taken and converted as well. And what I noticed about Watty Graham's Glen as well, they had, I think it was 6 different scores in the first half alone. And that just shows there that they were all willing to get involved in the successful play that they were contributing. And they were absolutely outstanding in that first half. They kind of shocked Kilmacud Crokes in that first. I know Kilmacud were kind of expecting Watty Grim then to provide an onslaught after what happened last January. But I don't think Kilmacud were expecting a battle as immense as this one from Glen in the first half. I think it was just incredible. It was wave after wave after wave. And epitomised by the last few minutes of the first half. I think Emmett Bradley gets that point to make it 8-4. And then straight away, almost, Conor Glass then knocks over the point. And you're thinking, whoa, Kilmacud are in a game here. They are in a muddle. And Watty Grimsdale, they provided the challenge fourfolds in that first half. And they deserve to be in the lead at halftime. And even early in that second half, I thought they managed the game really, really well up until, obviously, we'll talk about the Shane Walsh pass in a minute, but up until the Shane Walsh pass, I think they managed the game expertly. And I thought they were brilliant in that first half and early on in the second half, probably the first 10 minutes of the second half. And then after that, there was the Kilmacud purple patch.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like the start of the second half, they get the 2 points from, I think it was Cathal Mulholland swung over the last one. And I remember writing, like, Kilmacud are in big trouble here. On the live updates, I remember writing, like, they're in big trouble. I don't think they're coming back from this. And then it's crazy how one little play can kind of make you think, okay, I think something kind of has just changed there. It was one play down the line, and Kieran McFall had the ball, and Cian O'Connor, Hugh Kenny, and there was someone else. They all, three of them, ganged up on Kieran McFall, who passed it off to Michael Warnock. It wasn't a great pass, and they turned them over. And it was like, okay, we haven't seen that from Kilmacud Crokes in the second half yet. Where was that energy? Okay, now they've turned over Glen, and they got a score out of it. Then they got another score, and then they got a free from Mannion. He slotted it over. Then you're thinking, okay, now there's only 3 points in it. Like, out of nowhere, there's only 3 points in it. And then came the goal. So the goal is definitely off the back of all that good work done with the points. And Mannion's points, which I mentioned, one of them in particular was out of this world. Then the goal came, and you're thinking, okay, they're right back in it now. And let's just talk through that goal. In little moments like that, you can see the genius of players. And in that little moment, we saw the genius of Shane Walsh. That pass, in a moment where it looked like he should shoot. I was thinking in my head, Shane, pull the trigger there. I'm going to flash across the goal with the fog. I remember thinking, what on earth has he done? And then, the ball's in the net. I didn't even see who had the ball inside the penalty box because of the fog. But then on the replay, what a pass. And for Dempsey, it was a good finish. Took it well.
And probably just epitomised Shane Walsh's vision in the game. Like, I even watched analysis on Cullen Cooper years ago. And people that said that Cullen Cooper, what epitomised Cullen Cooper more than any other player in that era was his vision. To see a pass at the corner of his eye, I'm picking you out. And Shane Walsh is kind of that Cullen Cooper brand kind of player. He's just the whole package, skill set, eyesight, everything. I think he's just absolutely incredible. And I was thinking the same thing, look at the highlights. I was thinking, why are you kicking across the goal? And then, it almost reminded me, that goal in particular, away from the pass a minute more in the fog, that reminded me of, remember Robbie Brady's goal against Bosnia in Zenica in the European qualifiers. I think Robbie Brady was running with the ball through the fog, and then he slides into the bottom corner, and the viewers were like, "Oh, did we score? Did we score?" it was just a surreal bit of a moment there. But in fairness, Shane Walsh's pass is just out of this world. There's no doubt about that. He's just that kind of a footballer, and to do it in that space and that time as well. I think Kilmacud Crokes, correct me if I'm wrong, no, Seamus, I think they were 3 points down at that point. And you were thinking, okay, there was a few minutes left in the game. Maybe the best option is to put it over. But Shane Walsh is not that type of player. He wants to go for the kill. And he passed it into Hugh Kenny, and he finished it with a brilliant finish from you. And Hugh Kenny still had a lot to do in that situation. Let's not take side out of that. It was an incredible finish in fairness. And Kilmacud were right back in the game because of that. And it's amazing what a piece of brilliance does for a team to get you back into the game. And we talk about Shane Walsh and David Clifford being the top two players in the country. That's why they are. Because they can come up with moments of brilliance just like that. When nobody expects it, they just do it. Colin Cooper was another example. And I wasn't old enough to watch Peter Canavan. I imagine Peter Canavan was that type of player as well for Tyrone. But those sorts of players can turn a game in an instant, no matter if you have a momentum or not. If you have those players on your team at your disposal, you have a chance.
Oh no, that's it. And like he genuinely turned the game with that pass. It was absolutely sensational that he managed to find Dara Dempsey with that, and Dara Dempsey took the side step, sticks in the net. It was an absolutely incredible finish. And yeah, you're right. That's the type of player that Shane Walsh is. He's the type of guy that looks up and sees an opportunity to slot over a point, but then sees the chance of putting it straight on his teammate's chest inside the penalty box for him to stick it in the net, and he goes for that option instead. And that was exactly what Kilmacud Crokes actually needed at that moment. That leveled up the game, but then, you know, the madness ensued. Glen went straight down the other end, probably should have had a goal themselves, fired over the bar. I think it was by Jack Doherty who took that shot. And then the crazy last few minutes ensued, which then led to the Kilmacud Crokes mistake at the back, which was just like the first time I remember I looked down for a second, looked up, Ethan Doherty was running into an empty net. I didn't see what had happened until I watched the replay. Terrible mistake at the back by Kilmacud Crokes, which will definitely play on the minds of the people involved, no doubt about it. And then Kilmacud Crokes again, we're not having this. We're not done here yet. Go down to the other end. Shane Walsh takes a shot for a point, and it ends up in the back of the net. Just like crazy stuff when you think about it. Didn't turn out to be enough. Aaron was saying on his immediate reaction, he was saying he thought it was potentially blown up a little bit early. He said for the amount of stoppages with the goals and everything like that, maybe there could have been a case for one more attack. But I think it's difficult really to argue for it. I think, again, look, we're not going to beat the same old drum to death about the clock, that the clock just should be implemented from the LGFA again, then you wouldn't have these issues. But anyway, last few minutes, pandemonium, the 2 goals.
Yeah, and while we're on Aaron's discussion there, I think there'd be madness online if that was Stu saying that people are for Kilmacud, the referees are for Kilmacud, the GAA itself are for Kilmacud. So I think the referees just didn't want any controversy or whatever, and just blew it up. Then put all jokes aside. Look, maybe there was more time, maybe there was, but yeah, we go on about the clock and stuff like that, and that's probably a discussion for another day. But that error at the back from David Higgins, who, to be fair to them, had a very good game up to that point, a very good championship replacing Conor Ferris in goal. I think it was just needless what happened there. The Kilmacud were, I think it was a point down at that point. Go up the other end, keep the ball as long as you can, but don't do anything silly at the back when you're a point down. And Kilmacud just did that, unfortunately for them, and it's in the back of the net. And ultimately, I know Shane Walsh scored that goal at the end, but even looking at the clock itself, I thought once that happened, Ethan Doherty ran it into the net, I thought that was game over. And I didn't think Kilmacud were getting back into the game because of that. And Shane Walsh, we talk about his brilliance, but that was a fluke. Let's be honest. He was going, I'd say, for somebody in the square, but I'd say Conor Bradley was unsighted by the fog. Honestly, looking at the replay, I just thought he didn't know what was happening with the ball going in. And maybe if there was an orange ball, he would have caught it. But maybe it was in the favour of Kilmacud Crokes there. But yeah, Watty Graham's game deserved the win in the end, but it was a mad game, really, was at the end. When you consider it was 11 points to 4, I think, with 20 minutes to go. How Kilmacud came back into the game, I don't know. I really don't know. And especially, they were playing at the goal, which was most affected by the fog, as you were mentioning there. Like, that makes it even more incredible and shows what great champions they were. But there will be a new champion, there will be a new name in the Cup this season, and Watty Graham's team are one step forward for doing that, and congratulations to them.
Yeah, and like one thing that I will point out when we talk about the BRIGIDS Castlehaven game is we've had 2 winners who massively dropped off in the second half, like massively dropped off at stages of the second half. So that would be an interesting one when drawing comparisons to them. 2 teams that very much did their dirty work in the first half. But for example, when it comes to this, there could have been massive controversy in this game. And like, look, the GAA dodged a bullet when it came to the fog with the goal, because Crokes had 2 shots that very much confused everyone. Number one, the Paul Mannion free, that went over the bar. I don't know what the umpire was thinking coming out and waving it wide. The umpire comes out, waves it wide. Mannion is incensed, and you don't really see Mannion like that usually. So the minute Mannion goes like that, you kind of know, okay, he's convinced that was over the bar. The referee runs in and says that was 100% over the bar. Put up the white flag now. Umpire does it. And then when you see in the replay, you see the ball 100% did go over the bar. Keane O'Connor took a shot, which they showed the replay once of it slowed down. And it was inconclusive for me. I wasn't 100% sure whether it was wide or over the bar. Keane O'Connor didn't really make too much of a fuss about it, which is kind of a bit of a hint. I know that's a cliche, but it's a little bit of a hint that he probably knows it's wide. If he thought that was over in a game like that, you would be incensed. You would be like, put up the white flag now, because every score in a game like that is vital. But I said to you off air that I was watching it and I was thinking to myself, I was like, I just bet you, how much do you want to put down that Kilmacud or Glen will have their last shot of the game for a point, and the umpires won't know because of the fog whether it went over the bar or not, and they'll have to make a split decision on whether they think it was over or not. And like a decision like that, which is so important, like they were lucky that it didn't come down to that.
Really lucky. And I'd imagine if there was a situation like that, I think the refs would just go to a replay if they could.
Yeah.
I honestly think they would, to be fair. I don't know, is that in the rule book or whatever, but seeing is the situation of the game, the fog actually got worse as the game went on. And if that was to ensue, I thought, like, even look at some of the points, like even the goal from Hugh Henning, I couldn't see actually did it go back in the back of the net or not. That's how bad the fog was. So imagine if the umpire was and the referee himself was in that situation in that particular time. Like, it would be an absolute nightmare to referee in its own right. And I'd wonder, like, if the game, like a lot of people were saying the game should have been called off, and I think Ashton O'Reilly said on Twitter, will this game see the final whistle? And then when I see Wally Graham's then 11 points to 4 up, I'm thinking, if the ref is going to abandon this game now, there'll be a huge uproar.
Yeah, I knew that. If the ref had been like, okay, guys, we're coming back for a replay in a week, GA social media would have lost its mind. Oh, how much are Kilmacud paying you? Da, 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 da. Would have absolutely had a meltdown. So in a way, I'm kind of happy that it was played to the final whistle. But yeah, because we both know, man, certain people wouldn't have been too happy. And by certain people, I mean anybody who's outside of Kilmacud Crokes.
Yeah, and anybody nearly up and down the country, because they seem to have a hatred. And we've said this on your channel and ours channel as well. And I'm a Cork, and I don't necessarily hate Kilmacud Crokes.
No, I don't.
I don't think nearly proper GA fans, I don't think mind them. I think people that are maybe a bit uneducated in this kind of sector, I think they kind of jump on the bandwagon and say the Kilmacud are a disgrace. And we talked about this off air as well, about players switching clubs within counties. And we talked about Shane Walsh switching from Galway to Dublin. Like, if you're defending players switching clubs within counties, why are you going after Shane Walsh in this when he works in Dublin? He does a course in Dublin. It's easier. His life is made easier by being in Dublin and playing for Kilmacud Crokes. Because let's have this scenario now. If he was going back to Kilcorn Clonbird to train or whatever, if he was working in Dublin a day and then he goes back to train with Kilcorn Clonbird 4 days a week, maybe for a club side, it'd be absolutely manic. And ultimately, what will be taken away is Shane Walsh's brilliance on the game, and we don't want that. We don't want that in Gaelic games whatsoever. So I'm kind of happy that he did make the right decision and go to a Dublin club and made his life easier. And I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely okay with it. There's other players that have done that before as well. You mentioned a whole host of players that have gone to Dublin.
Oh, especially in Dublin. Especially in Dublin. It's been going on since the turn of the millennium.
Noel Coakley from Cork, I'm thinking.
Coakley from Cork, Kieran McGeeney, the Mackin brothers and the McNultys were all playing for Na Fianna at the turn of the millennium in 2000, 2001. They won back-to-back Dublin titles with Kieran McGeeney at centre-half back. Like, he was the best centre-half back in the country at the time. I'm sure people were a bit annoyed about that, but there wasn't exactly social media around at the time to vent that frustration. Vincent's have had a whole raft of players from End of Arley to Brendan Egan to now Dara Cummins plays for them. He's from Sligo. Like, there's a lot of players from all over the country that come to Dublin clubs. It's not the players' fault. It's a geographic issue that most of the best jobs, most of the biggest colleges are in the capital. That's the way that the country is set up. So for Shane Walsh to get a job like that, it was going to be in Dublin. And that means that his life, a good chunk of it, is going to be in Dublin. So it would make it easier for him to move to Dublin. But yeah, so I said, look, it was only as big a deal as that because it's Shane Walsh. But people that were acting like Shane Walsh was the first player in GAA history to move from one club to another, when we've seen players who swapped counties get way less abuse than Shane Walsh and Kilmacud Crokes are getting, than players that have swapped counties, like a Shawnee Johnston or situations like that. Like, that didn't get anywhere near the same coverage as Shane Walsh, just because he's a brilliant footballer. And we saw with the moment of genius that he had at the end of the game. But the result is the result. Massive congratulations to Glen. They have beaten Kilmacud Crokes. There's a reminder of the result: 114 to 210. Kilmacud Crokes are no more. The reigning defending champions are no more. They are out of the championship. And Waddy Graham's Glen will face up against Roscommon and Connacht champions St. Brigid's in the final. Now, this scoreline a little bit flattering because Castlehaven were 1 point behind them going into the final couple of minutes. Brigid's managed to pull clear with a couple of last-ditch scores. Brigid's completely shut off in the second half. And I remember I said this to you, they did their dirty lifting in the first half. Like, at half-time, they were 4 points clear. Castlehaven roared back into the contest. It took Brigid's 17 minutes in the second half to get a score. Like, Castlehaven were very much on top, and they missed some crucial chances. And the first one I'm going to say is Rory Maguire hitting the crossbar. If that goes in, we might be talking about Glen Castlehaven.
And what was significant about that, actually, if Rory Maguire converted that, Castlehaven would have led for the first time in that game.
Yeah.
And it was a huge chance miss, it really was. And Rory Maguire's had a brilliant year. Again, he had a stellar game now today again, as he always does. He's a brilliant player for Cork and Castlehaven. But, and this isn't just Rory Maguire, it's players up and down the country that I'm thinking of in those sorts of situations. I don't know, do you notice this, Seamus? But players in them sort of situations tend to blast the ball rather than place it.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just a rush of blood to your head. I don't know why you players
I just think it's the moment. The moment probably gets to you and you're thinking, oh my God, I have such a good chance. And like the history and everything like that. You're not exactly going to lob it over the goalkeeper.
No, you wouldn't have the confidence to do that, especially when you're losing in a game like that.
Yeah.
I think like the best thing probably to do in that situation is to just place it into the bottom corner where the goalkeeper it's delayed for him to get down on the ground. Whereas if it's up high, the goalkeeper is in a stellar position or it rebounds off the bar. And that's what happened to Roy Maguire today. And it was a huge chance. And I think there was another goal chance. You were mentioning Jack Callahan in the first half as well. I think that was just a shot at the dark, to be honest with you. I think Jack was nearly tempted to go for a point. He was going for the goal at the end, and it just flashed off the post. And that was a big chance as well. And I think at that stage, Castlehaven could have had 1-1, and they could have been level with BRIGIDS. And those small moments in the games, and even Brian Hurley had an outstanding game today, 7 points. But there was a stage in the game, he had 2 45s in a row and missed both.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking, when it's not your day, it's just not your day. And Castlehaven had a brilliant year. They've had an outstanding year, but it's just those missed opportunities. I know BRIGIDS actually had more wides than Castlehaven. Look at the stats there. But Castlehaven probably had bigger, better opportunities than BRIGIDS. And they just didn't take them. And it was just unfortunate from a Cork point of view and a Castlehaven point of view that they didn't take them. And they had a brilliant year, as I mentioned. They weren't particularly good in their shooting against Dingle either, but they got away with it, obviously, with that heroic display in Limerick. Today, they showed a lot of guts, Castlehaven, but they came up against a BRIGIDS side, and we're going to mention the first half, I'm sure, later on in the chat. BRIGIDS were absolutely superb in that first half. Everything that they kicked went over the bar. And they were just having those sorts of days. And what was incredible to me Ben O'Carroll has been a brilliant forward for BRIGIDS on this run. 7 goals, 29 points. He's been absolutely incredible in his own right. He only scored 2 points in that first half. Whereas I think Bobby Nugent scored 3 or something like that. Brian Durman got 1-1. And other players around him were stepping up. And Brian Stack as well, going in from defence to attack as well at certain stages. Eddie Nolan, Connor Hand, Kieran Sugru, they all chipped in at different stages of the game. And that was probably another key difference between the sides. Like, when you look at overall different scores, BRIGIDS had a total of 7 different scores. Castlehaven had 3. And ultimately, that was the difference between the two sides. BRIGIDS had other players other than Ben O'Carroll that could step up. Castlehaven, other than Brian Hurley, didn't have enough, unfortunately, to get over the line today.
Yeah, and look, Brian Hurley was amazing. Like, he very much carried the fight to St. Brigid's. There was one point he got in I think it was the first half. Yeah, it was the first half, where I think he had about 4 BRIGIDS lads around him. And in the 1 second of space that he had, he slotted it over the bar. Like, he's a fantastic forward. He was brilliant. I don't think Michael Hurley was 100% fit. He didn't look himself out there today. He missed a couple of chances that he usually slots away. He only scored 1 point. He missed one shot in particular in the second half where you'd put your house on him to get it. Like, it's one of those where I think Castlehaven will sit there tonight now and they'll think, God, that feels like we've left that behind us. Like, when you think about the Maguire hitting the crossbar, there was a route there for them to win that game. But at the same time, if you were Jerome Stack, you'd be sitting there thinking, we were comfortable at halftime. What the hell happened in the third quarter that we just forgot how to play football? All of a sudden, there was no sign of Ben O'Carroll. There was no sign of Bobby Nugent. There was no sign of Brian Derwin, who got whipped off pretty soon after that. All of a sudden, they were getting bossed around the middle. Castlehaven were on top, and they were lucky that Maguire missed that shot. Because I feel like if Rory Maguire sticks that in the net, Castlehaven go ahead for the first time. It would have given them a real shot in the arm. Instead, BRIGIDS got a little bit of momentum. Robbie Dolan hit the point in the 47th minute, which was the first point of the second half. That was crucial for them. There were crucial scores. Then John Cunningham's, I thought, was vital. Then Paul McGrath gets one, which pretty much sealed it. And then the penalty, Ben O'Carroll belts it over instead of going for the goal, which I don't really know. Like, if you're trying to, like, I get the whole sealing it, slotting it over the bar and everything like that. But it's interesting. But yeah, as a spectacle, I would have liked to have seen him go for the goal. But probably the right decision in the end. But the point I'm making is, in that third quarter, while they were amazing in the first half, they were doing nothing in the third quarter.
They weren't, no. And while you're on the Ben O'Carroll point, I'd agree with what Ben O'Carroll actually did. And what it did, it got them in front by 4 points, and that meant Castlehaven were completely and utterly dead. Yeah. That was game over, game, set, and match. And I think he did the right thing there, Ben O'Carroll. He could have easily gone for the goal, could have gone for the glory, but no, puts the ball over the bar. Like, a brilliant player he is, and the smart player he is, in fairness to him, put it over the bar. But BRIGIDS in that third quarter, it was like every shot they nearly put over in the first half. I think they got their first wide in the 24th, 25th minute. And then the second half, every shot they took in the third quarter, particularly, every shot went wide. And you're thinking, what is going on here? I was there in certainly Semple Stadium today. There didn't seem to be a wind. So you're wondering, how could their fortunes in shooting change so drastically in one half?
Yeah.
Or between two halves of between the first half and the second half. I think it was just remarkable in its own right. Ben O'Carroll wasn't really getting a sniff, as you mentioned there. Bobby Nugent was hitting shots wide. Brian Derwin hit a few wide, and Connor Hand had a chance as well. Like, there was a few snatched efforts that they could have easily put over, and they weren't just speculative efforts. They were easy efforts that they were putting over in the first half. Yeah. And you were thinking, how? Like, Castlehaven have a real chance here, and like that Maguire chance, I think will haunt Castlehaven. And we mentioned during the week, actually, would they have a chance like this again? You're thinking the Nemo and the Bars or any other team like that in Cork could challenge Castlehaven again next year. And that's a possibility. So this was a huge chance for them to get to an All-Ireland final. They have never won an All-Ireland semi-final. And I think James McCarthy was speaking to Tommy Rooney from off the ball at the end of the game about the cursed woodwork. And it was coincidentally the same woodwork, the same goal actually, which Aaron Zoyle scored into for that goal in
That is
1997.
mental.
It's unreal. It's so
That is
nice.
mental.
And
The
James
ghost goal.
McCarthy, the goal scored exactly what sparked the Harry Redknapp, John Luca Vialli thing on the AIB, brilliant documentary. But James McCarthy was saying to Tommy Rooney, it was just a coincidence. It's more than that, in my opinion. It has to be something with that goal. It's almost like
I wonder did they laugh when they seen the venue? Like that they knew that they would be shooting into that goal at some point of the game.
Yeah, I think they would have chose, but at the same way, they were shooting into one goal in one game in this year, and then they were shooting into the opposite goal in 1997, and both times they were kind of done.
Yeah, so maybe it's just the pitch. Maybe it's just, it's just the whole stadium that doesn't agree with them. But I think is it fair to say this? I thought the key score was John Cunningham's. I thought that one was the one where I was like, okay, that's a massive score. Because I think Castlehaven were 1 point behind. Cunningham put them, I think it was back 2 in front. Led to Castlehaven chasing the goal instead of an equaliser. And then that's when BRIGIDS were able to get their third from Paul McGrath. And led to then, the penalty and everything like that. Led to the frantic ending that we had. Led to Castlehaven having to go for the goal. And with the attacks that they had, they easily could have got 2 points. Or a couple of points. So it's like that score for me is the one that was the separator.
Yeah, and I think that was badly needed. That was actually, I think it was BRIGID's second point of the second half. John Cunningham's vital, absolutely vital. I actually think Cunningham's might have sealed it, but I think the most vital score, in my opinion, was Robbie Dolan's, the first score of the second half, because it settled BRIGID's down. It got them going again, and they went from there to the finish, and they finished out the game really, really well. Up until then, you were fans. I was thinking in my head then, Castlehaven have BRIGIDS here, because BRIGIDS are kicking wide after wide after wide. Castlehaven are gaining more and more confidence, and once Robbie Dolan gets that point, Castlehaven are like, oh, they're going up again. The confidence is up again, and I think it kind of knocked Castlehaven back a bit, and then it pushed BRIGIDS on towards victory. So I think it was Robbie Dolan's point. John Cunningham's was an excellent point as well, and so was Paul McGrath's in their own right. It pushed them even further ahead, and it made Castlehaven panic even more, because BRIGIDS, once they got to 2 points, once they got to 3 points, Castlehaven started doing things that were kind of un-Castlehaven-like, if you like. Because I think it was one incident late on in the half. I think it was, I don't know who passed the ball to Colin Maguire now, but he passed it over his head and to the sideline. And you could see the frustration on the Castlehaven players there. And it was just like, this is not going to be our day. And then I think BRIGIDS get the ball, go down the other end, win the penalty over the bar for Ben O'Carroll. And ultimately, that was the game over then. But I think ultimately, the more scores went on the board, as Robbie Dolan's score went on, John Cunningham's, Paul McGrath's, I think that score by score, Castlehaven got to get even more panicked after that. And it made them do things that were like, they wouldn't normally do them in the Cork Championship or the Munster Championship. And ultimately, I think Robbie Dolan's point got them going, BRIGIDS, in the second half, because in that third quarter, they were shallow what they were in the first half.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like they definitely just had a slump in that third quarter. The Robbie Dolan point was crucial, because it just kind of, okay, now you've scored in the second half. That's a bit of a relief. You're up and running now for the half. And when the Cunningham shot went over, it felt like Castlehaven had missed the boat a little bit when it came to the momentum. That like, oh, you really had them there in that 10 minutes and you didn't make as much hay as you potentially could have. Like, you didn't get the goal from Rory Maguire, which that could have really put them on the back foot, even more so than they already were. It felt like BRIGIDS had kind of dodged the bullet there, and then they push on for the win, which obviously now, to remind you all of it, the 2 results, massive congratulations to both these sides. Glen beating Kilmacud Crokes, and then BRIGIDS beating Castlehaven. They're into the final against each other. It's the first time ever that St. BRIGIDS will face Waddy Graham's Glen in the All-Ireland Club final. I'd be interested to know if they have actually ever played against each other before in club championship football, or if this is an inaugural pair, and I don't actually know that. But Your first thoughts now on this pairing. What was your first thoughts when Glen got the victory and you knew it would be Glen versus BRIGIDS in that final?
I think even before Kilmacud and Watty Graham's Glen, I was thinking the winners of this will win the All-Ireland.
Yeah.
And even looking at the game, I think BRIGIDS, they've done really, really well in fairness to them. They beat Corfin, they beat a tough Castlehaven side, but that third quarter for BRIGIDS today probably epitomised are the All-Ireland winning material. I know Watty Graham's Glen had a slump in that second half against Kilmacud, but in fairness, in the first 10 minutes of that second half, they had Kilmacud on the ropes.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, and maybe they just start off thinking, we've won the game here. And there's a difference here. BRIGIDS were 4 points up at half time. It was still in the melting pot. We all know what Castlehaven are like in coming back into the game. And BRIGIDS somehow allowed Castlehaven back into the game. And Rory, if he gets that goal, we could be talking about Castlehaven here. So, like, I just feel Glen have the upper hand at BRIGIDS. When you look at the teams, I think when you look at the mentality of both teams, when you look at the Jerome Stack is a very good manager, but Malachy O'Rourke is one of the best managers in the country.
Yeah.
And I just feel that Watty Graham's Glen have the upper hand in going on to win it. And I will say this, Seamus, I did say from the very start of the club championship back in, I'd say July, August, Watty Graham's Glen will win the All-Ireland. I'm hoping, actually, because I'm hoping one of my predictions for once is actually going to be right. And I think I could be right in this. I'm very, very confident that Watty Graham's Glen will win this. But BRIGIDS, they've had a very, very good year in fairness to them. But I just think this final step is just a bit too far.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And look, while I highlighted when we were talking about the Glen Kilmacud game, I highlighted that both of them dropped off massively in the second half at stages. I think, and look, I don't have the figures and the stats and all to back this up, but I felt from watching both games that Castlehaven's comeback into the game was also helped by the fact that BRIGIDS all of a sudden couldn't kick snow off a rope. But also, when you flip it to the other side, I don't think Glen all of a sudden started playing badly. I just think Kilmacud Crokes hit a purple patch and went on a run. Glen still were creating attacks and still were scoring in Crokes' purple patch. For a while, BRIGIDS didn't look like they were going to score. 17 minutes in the second half, they went without it. If you do that against Glen, it's done. So look, I think, BRIGIDS will be happy in the position that they're in. They're going into this final as complete underdogs. Nobody thinks they're going to beat Glen in that final. And to be honest, I think Glen are going to beat them in the final as well. I think it's Glen's time. It feels like that. It feels like they've bided their time. And interestingly, that would be the third year in a row now that the defeated finalists from the year previous has come back and won the All-Ireland the year after that. Kilmacud Crokes. Will Watty Graham's Glen make it 3 in a row? It's been a hell of a weekend. I mean, 2 absolutely cracking All-Ireland club semi-finals. Myself and Matthew have gone through them. Just to remind you of the results one more time. Watty Graham's Glen beat Kilmacud 114 to 210. And St. Brigid's beat Castlehaven by 111 to 10 points. So that is the All-Ireland Club Football Semi-Finals for 2023/2024. We now have our final 2. It will be St. Brigid's from Roscommon against Watty Graham's Glen from County Derry in the All-Ireland Club Football Final. Thank you so much to Matthew for coming on. Thank you so much to anyone who tuned into the video over the hour. Until the next episode, guys, here on Cluiche, take care.